Here are 5 key money habits that are keeping you poor. Let's dive in. Hi there, Jarrad Brown here, Australian expat financial planner here in Singapore. And in this video, I'd like to share with you 5 common habits that are keeping you poor. So let's dive right in and have a look at exactly what these are and how you can overcome them. Number 1 is paying yourself last. When it comes to investments or saving for retirement or saving for the kids, these savings or these investments should be leaving your bank account first. As soon as your salary hits the account, those monies, those amounts should be leaving your bank quickly. You should not be operating under the assumption or under the model of solely investing the surplus. The surplus will always find a way to disappear, and Singapore is not the cheapest place in the world to live, as we all know, and it makes it very easy to spend money. So automate your investments, have them leave your account, and make sure you're paying yourself first. Number 2 is getting comfortable with bad debt. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, bad debt are things like personal loans, car loans, store credit cards, effectively money that we have borrowed to buy depreciating assets or assets that are not investments, not something that is going to benefit our future selves like retirement. Now, if we get comfortable with bad debt, it quickly compounds, it quickly adds up. Interest rates on these types of debt are typically also a lot higher than good debt, such as investment mortgages, for example. So one of the most common ones is really loans for cars. Now, we know vehicles are incredibly expensive in Singapore, but we also see a number of Australian expats return to Australia and look to borrow money to buy a car. Now, if you absolutely must have a new car and that's the only way you can do it, then perhaps borrowing and finding a cheap financing rate is the way to go. But where possible, if you cannot afford it without debt, you should not be buying it. Very simple. Let's move on to number 3. The third common mistake that is keeping you poor is ignoring the tax efficiencies of all of your areas of personal finance. So this could be things like using a redraw account instead of an offset on your property investments in Australia, leading to some portion of that debt not being deductible anymore. It could be ignoring how you own your investments, such as using super or trusts or companies or insurance bonds, and simply holding things in your own name, which becomes fully taxable when you re-enter Australia. So make sure you are exploring the tax efficiencies, optimize your investments, and make sure that you're not overpaying for any structures and strategies that you put in place. The fourth common mistake that we see people make that are keeping you poor is allowing lifestyle creep to eat into your savings and into your monthly surpluses. Now, lifestyle creep is where as your income grows, your lifestyle grows along with it. A little more on rent, a little more on holidays, spending a little bit more on your groceries, dining out a little more often. We all know that Singapore makes it incredibly easy to spend money, and as our income grows, often our expenditure will grow alongside with it. So ultimately, if you can, ignore those pay rises and simply look to increase your savings, your future self will thank you for it. So let's move on to the 5th and final habit that is keeping you poor. Now, the 5th and final one is ignoring the emergency fund, or taking the approach of, I'll get to the emergency fund later, because right now I really want to buy that investment property or pay the bond on my new rental that I need to buy or invest in these shares. Your emergency fund needs to be first. You should not be doing anything else with your money until you have 3 to 6 months of expenses in a bank account that is fully accessible. That doesn't mean 3 to 6 months of expenses invested or in a property or somewhere else that you've stashed away in some form of illiquid investment. It needs to be cash and it needs to be readily accessible. So they're the 5 habits that are keeping you poor. I hope it gives you some food for thought, potentially some things that you would like to change in your own life, your own spending, your own budgeting, but I hope you find them helpful. Thank you very much for tuning in and see you next time.